Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are on K2Born, and I am Tanguy Jacopin. So the series is strategy, as you may have noticed, and the topic of the day is one of the most well-known issues concerning this field of expertise. It's the three generic strategies according to Porter: extend and limit. So, I guess if you haven't heard about this topic, it means that you're quite new in the field of strategy, or you just want to refresh everything about it. So, Michael Porter is faculty of Harvard. He comes from much more from the economic side and moved to strategy. So and here you can see it. So at this point, what is really important to realize is that the field was quite new, and this is the reason why you will be surprised to see the elements that are mentioned in the one. We're going to provide an example to look at it, and above all, we're going to insist as well on the limit of this framework that was invented many decades ago already. Let's start. So, when we are talking about the three generic strategies, according to Michael Porter, we are referring to three of them: differentiation, cost leadership, and focus, niche, or specialization, according to which word you want to choose. So, what is really important is that first, let's start with this one. We're going to start with cost leadership. Maybe the simplest one to understand. So basically, you say, well, I'm going to sell many units. I will generate economies of scale for sure, and thanks to it, the cost per unit will decrease, and my competitors won't be able to follow me. So low cost positioning, and you just do it at your industry level. Then you've got another one, just to go this way. You can say, okay, I just want to create a differentiation and doing some things that nobody does at this moment, and some things that people will recognize at once. So here you may have many examples. Just to go. Just to mention, because I love shoes, if you haven't noticed it, I am going to mention this example. When we say, if I tell you red sole, about which brand you think about? I'm sure you will say Louboutin, and you will be right. You say Christian Louboutin, and that's it. Why? Because before him, everybody has making black sole, and this is a way just for just to recognize the shoes. Why is it important? Well, if you got flat shoes, it's not necessary because nobody will look at it except when you'll be walking. So, but it means that you're walking just down. Meanwhile, otherwise, if you're looking at the heels, because we're talking about high heel shoes, you can see the sole, even if you pay attention to the person that is in front of you. Okay, so this is an example. So maybe you will say, yeah, but this is an example more for women and so on, and I don't know this industry. Okay, so I can give you another example about automotive industry. For instance, I'm less fan about it, but I've got other sports that I like. For instance, I would say Pininfarina. Pininfarina was a car designer for Ferrari, and then he went for other brand, for instance with Peugeot, just to create cars with a really nice design. Okay, so these are some examples that you can pay attention to, and you create a differentiation. If you want to stay in the universe of shoes, what you can say, for instance, is that if you like football or soccer, if you're in US and Canada, basically you will see that players used to have all of them black shoes, and right now they do something that is completely opposite, which it means that what they're doing is that each of them has a shoes of a different color, and I would say that the truly original are the vintage ones that have two black shoes. Okay, so this is quite interesting to look at it, and you create a differentiation. People say, "Hey, I want the same shoes as I want the red shoes of Cristiano and the left shoes of Messi, for instance." Okay, so these are example, and again, it's at industry-wide what counts. Last but not least, we're talking about focus, niche, specialization. So here it's only for a peculiar segment, you'll say you will specialize only on one item, or you will provide an element that will not be strong enough to be considered as a differentiation because it's not done at the industry level. Okay, and this is one. And two, you can have this type of specialization can be based on low cost, or can be based on some elements that as a customer will be eager to pay a pretty high price for it. So these are the two elements that you can focus on in terms of focus, niche, specialization. So it could be, for instance, within the automotive industry, Smart and Volkswagen and Mercedes, created the watch, the 4.4. And it was a success because this example, they create a new category of product, and by creating this category of product, after many car makers enter into it. Okay, so this is an example. This alliance between Swatch and Mercedes to create the Smart. Sorry, I did a mistake. It's the Smart car, and it's a good issue just to move forward. Mercedes decided to go out finally, but they created their own segment with a class A. So just to see how it works. Now, it's not perfect. We're going to see many reasons why it's not perfect. But first, we need to take into consideration that it was one of the first issues in strategies. This is the reason why it's great to have it. You can say it's good for beginner because it helps you structure your mind and say, hey, okay, what do I want to go? What would be my bottom line? And this is really important that you try to fix you some rule and to see if all your products are entering into the schemes that you define. Or you can say, well, you can mix it, but if you mix it, you will say how you organize the cannibalization among your different brands. Okay, so this is, let's say, how it can work. But unfortunately, as all these tools, you've got some limit. And when we're talking about this limit, it's important that you realize them. So what are they? Basically, you've got two. One is to be stuck in the middle. So, and what Porter said, it just say you cannot be stuck in the middle. It means that you cannot be between two strategy. Well, it's as Miller demonstrated, you can have two strategies, and you can have even more. Just to show you an example, with having a different strategic domain, Toyota, for instance, is decreasing cost on a constant base. So it's obvious that it's a focus, and Lexus is a premium product. So it just demonstrates the difference between these two companies. I'm not talking about Tata Motors, where the difference between Tata cars and the Nano, for instance, that is the cheapest cars on earth, and on the other end, Land Rover and Jaguar that are amazingly expensive, create a huge difference that shows that yes, it's possible to have two strategy. Yes, it's possible to have different strategic domain. So it's important to keep it in mind. It's a second type of problem. It exists both for cause leadership and for differentiation, but where it's really problematic, it's about cause leadership. Why? Because if the framework was suitable for all companies, it would mean that all the players within the same sector, they could adopt it. But it's impossible, because not everybody can go on cause leadership, because otherwise nobody has this leadership. Necessarily one is better than the other, one will improve its positioning compared to the other, and this will generate some uncertainties. Not to say that some at some point will be forced to lose their positioning. Just to comment you an example, for instance, you've got in the electrodomestic product, in the white product, you've got a Chinese company that is extremely powerful, Haier, H-A-I-E-R, and they are so good that they are putting away some of the companies in their traditional range of product. They've even they provoke the death of Fagor and all the brands that were correlated, such as Brand, Vedette, and so on. Why? Because to a certain extent they're moving up the cost leadership and they're increasing their range of product progressively to a certain extent that they expel from the market and they say, let's stick to a niche. At the end, well, the niche is not big enough just to make some money, and you go and bankrupt. So this is the reason why it's not possible for all the players to be in this type of strategy. Okay, this is issue one. Issue two, we insist more in another anytime video where we're comparing market share, market growth, and value growth. And it's important to say, okay, is it always the case that when your market share is going up, is it always positive? And the answer is clearly no. It can be, but not necessarily. Okay, I leave you with this teaser because I think it's important that you think about it. And three, well, it's great, but you know that we are talking about an ability to lower costs, so it should be sustained over time. And if there's no learning curve, well, basically you will have some hurdle, you will have some threshold, and at some point it will prevent you from gaining some from lowering cost, and you'll be dead out. And your competitors will move and boom, they will eat you. So when we look at it, what can we say? Well, it's good to have this framework. It was a major invention in terms of strategy, but go a little further and you'll see that you got fantastic tools. Okay, thanks so much to be with us on K2Bon. It was Tanguy Jacopin. Bye bye. Have a nice day.